Hey friends, do you know in one of the Microsoft surveys they found one of the three developers are looking for Cosmos DB provider with Entity Framework. But wait, why do they need Entity Framework since SDKs are already available? So let's check it out. Hello everyone, this is Naveen Motwani and welcome to my YouTube channel Developer Wisdom. So the reason why Cosmos DB's developers are looking for Entity Framework is because Entity Framework is so easy to work with. And to prove this point, let's take an example. Alright, so this is one of the example which I took from Microsoft documentation where they are trying to fetch data from Cosmos DB using .NET SDK. I believe there are other SDKs available, but just concentrating on .NET SDK, how we can get the data from Cosmos DB. So the first step they are doing is they are trying to prepare a query, which is a string query again. Then they are trying to, trying to connect to or trying to mention the container from which they want to access the data. And finally, they want to, they are generating a query definition from the SQL, from the string query which we have written over here. And the last step is get the data from Cosmos DB. So if I can see here are 4 steps involved. The major drawback I can see here is, the first one is this query. This is in the string. There is no way, if let's say if I just write it some incorrect syntax, so there is no way I can know what's wrong unless I run it or I kind of run this code. So this is a major disadvantage. It is going to be make you less productive because there is no intelligence. And let's try to do the exact same thing in Entity Framework. So this is the code, this is the exact same thing which we are trying to do using Entity Framework. So I think it is clear to you, like we are just writing one line to do the exact same thing, and on top of it, it is giving you intelligence if you are making any syntactical problem. So it is giving you the feedback at the same time. Now I think it makes sense to you why we need the Entity Framework or why people are looking for Cosmos DB provider for Entity Framework. Now let's start implementing it. So before we start implementing it, there are some prerequisites which we need. Like you need to know about what is Entity Framework, you need to know basics of C#, and at the same time you should know what is Cosmos DB. Though I can give you a brief introduction about Cosmos DB, like it is a globally distributed database. You can say it's a NO-SQL provided by Microsoft, but it is not just a NO-SQL, it is a very powerful tool. For example, if you're working for an application where you need data everywhere and very quickly, so Cosmos DB is something you should look for, though it is very expensive. But if you are building such kind of app where that latency is a key, so I think Cosmos DB is something you should look for. Alright, so without wasting any time, let's start Visual Studio and create a new project. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll just create a new project. I'll choose Web APIs. Alright, I'm just going to write it and I'm just going to name it like Cosmos DB with EF. Okay, click on Nest. I'm using 6.0 long-term support. At this point I don't need Docker support. I am using the Swagger, so let's click on create. Here it is. Alright, so to use the this is the Entity Framework core, and whatever additional thing you want to use, you probably need to install that a package for that. So the same goes for Entity Framework. For in case of Entity Framework, you have to use that Microsoft Entity Framework package. So I'll go to NuGet. I'll look for Microsoft.entityframework.core, and to be precise, I'm looking for Cosmos DB. So let's see Cosmos. Do we have anything? Alright, yeah, so I'll install this. Meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll just create some controllers over here. So we'll be using okay. Alright, so I'll create a empty API controller and I'll name it as a OrderController basically. And the reason I'm using something like order, because I wanted to explain as many a scenario as I can with this. And order and the major problem which people face with Entity Framework or or doing thing is like uh, whenever you have a nested object, how you're going to store it into entity framework, because entity framework is, for years it's been known for, relational database. Now we are using as a NoSQL, ORM. So people generally face, or have that confusion in their mind, like how I can use the what do you call nested object. So that's why I'm using this order thing. And let me actually quickly create a model as well. I'll just create a folder called model, and I'll add a class called order. Okay, I already have this entity in here, so without typing everything and wasting my time and yours as well, I'll just copy and paste. Okay, so this is the order entity, and the way I am uh, creating this entity, or I'll have that order, I'll have one customer with one order, and I can have multiple orders. Then inside the customer I can have address model. So you can see there are multiple nestings available. I think it will kind of cover all the scenarios which I'm trying to convey. So we have our order model, we have our controller. So and if you guys have worked with entity framework, which I am assuming you have, so like for entity framework there's there is a very important concept called context, and context is something which is the heart of entity framework, which tells entity framework about the database, about the mapping available. So to continue with this particular demo, we will have to create a context file. So I'll just name this file as a mycontext.cs. okay, and since we already have that entity framework package installed, so I can use db context, and I'll just hit control period. Yeah, it will give me option what are for importing the using. So I'll just quickly create the constructor, and this is very basic stuff. Don't have to worry about because and this code is available out there in the on the documentation, and the best thing about it is you don't have to remember it. At the same time, you don't have to do it every time. It's just a one-time thing. Anyone who is setting up this thing can do like setup for you, and then whoever is working with entity framework, they don't have to write this code. So all right, okay, so as I was saying, for using entity framework you need to have a context file, and in the context file you need to tell entity framework how many tables you're going to have, okay, or what are the relationship between the tables. So the way you declare a table in context file is you use the db set. Okay, so I'll have a db set, and I have a order type of table, and yeah, I can name it as a order. Now the next step is we are using nesting, right? We are using nested models, right? There are a lot of nested objects. So you need to tell entity framework what are the what are the relationship between all the classes, or all the objects. So to do that, you just need to override a existing method, like override a method called all model creating, and you need to pass the model builder. That's it. Now the next step is you have to tell the relationship and what is the container for order. So I'll just use model builder dot entity, and I'll just say order, because this is the entity I'm going to work with. Now I'll just use the lambda expression basically. Now I'll say this particular order owns many, and what it owns, like I was explaining, one order can have multiple order items. So I can say o dot order items. That's it. And we have also seen that order can have one customer, so we can say o's only one, and we can say e o dot x dot customers. One more thing which we need to address over here, that customers are also having nested objects. And I was saying, when I was explaining, I show you like customer can have one address. So I'll also have to mention that over here. So I can use one more lambda expression over here. I can say customer, and this n represents the customer, and this says n owes 1, and what it owes, probably the address. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much we need to set up, and this is a one-time setup. Here you can you also need to mention which, so when I query this, so which container it's going to hit. So to do that, I'll have to say p dot has to container, and I'll have to specify the container. So in my Cosmos DB, I have created one container called order, and the same I'm expecting this order to go into that particular container. Now last thing, like when we are using, or when we are working with Cosmos DB, so there's a very important concept called partition key. So those who don't know what is partition key is something, so for example, you are inserting thousands of record, right? And when you query it, what Cosmos has to do is has to search thousands of record, right? And this is not going to be very efficient, right? But we want that to be efficient. So how you can do it? You can tell Cosmos, like, I have several partitions, and I'll be storing data into that. So just to give you an example, I can have a partition with partition date. I can say all my order of 16th of January go into that particular partition, and 17th go into that particular partition, and so on. So depending on my scenario, like depending on what I am building, I can decide what partition key I want to have. So just to keep things simple, I just used property called partition name. So don't get confused what is partition key here. Like right now, this partition key is just another property over here. This can be date, this can be name, this can be address, anything. Like it depends what you are trying to build. So yeah, so this is all about partition key. Moving forward, so this is done, like our context file is done. Just to recap, what we are doing is we have mentioned, like how many entities we have, or how many tables we are going to have in terms of entity framework and Cosmos DB relationship, and what when I say order, which container it should hit, what is the partition key for that particular container, and what are the relationship this order model have with other entities like customer and the order items. So yeah, this is how our model context file should look like. Now we have downloaded that entity framework, right? Like we haven't configured that into our system so that it can be used, right? So to configure into our application, there's a very simple code we have to write. We'll have to go to program.cs in case you are using .NET 5 or below .NET 6. So there will be a class called startup.cs. You have to go there and register that particular service. So how you register is, in case of .NET below .NET 6, you can directly say services, but in case of .NET 6 or higher versions, you can say builder.service, and you can say add db context. Okay, and what is the context name? Our context name is MyContext. Okay, I'll just import that, and then I'll say I'll have to provide some options. One of the primary options we'll have to mention is, like as a DB context provider, I want to use Cosmos DB. I want to use what do you call? Yeah, I want to use Cosmos. Use Cosmos. Yeah, I'll import this, and yeah, I just need to provide the connection string as well as my database name. That's it. I'll just, for readability purpose, I'll just create two variables called connection string, and I'll also use a variable called db name, and I'll use the same over here. Alright, so let's go to the our Cosmos DB and portal, and try to get like these two things. from there. This is my Cosmos DB account I just created for this particular demo. And let me go to Data Explorer. As I was mentioning, I had to save some time. I had already created this MyStore database, and in that I had created this order items. If I check the items right now, I don't have any items here. And as from the code, we need to get the connection string and database name. So let me go to access keys over here very quickly. So from here we can get the everything which we need to connect to this database. So right now I need this connection string, so I'll go to my code and put it over here. And my database name is what was that, my store, I believe so. Yeah, let me go to Data Explorer, right? Yeah, just to avoid confusion, I always recommend or like to copy directly from the source. Here a warning for you guys, like recommendation, don't ever try to write this connection string over here. It should always come from some secret. If you're using Azure, then it should come from key vault or something like that, but just for this tutorial I'm just keeping it over here. So yeah, it's a recommendation. So we have got connection string, database name, and we have set up this DB context as well, and we have provided MyContext, which is a context file for our entity framework. Now we are pretty much good to go. Now we need to write some code to save and get the data. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the controller, and best thing about this entity framework setup is by default it gives it gives this now, since the way we have set up this DB context using add DB context, now out of the box it allow you to inject this MyContext in your controller. So this is one of the benefit. Otherwise you always have to new this up, and then there are several annoying options which you don't want to, trust me, you don't want to work with. So let me just import this, and again very simple or standard stuff which you had already worked with. I'll just say read only, and that's pretty much it. MyContext equals to, and this is one of the amazing thing about Visual Studio 2020 code. You just write something and it allows you, or it completes you, or it gives you a lot of recommendation to autocomplete. So I love this feature. Okay, so as I was showing you, there's no data. So first we have to create some kind of method or API which will insert some data in it. So I had already done this, and I don't want to write it again in front of you. So just to save some time, I'm just copy pasting it. Let me explain you what I mean here. Okay, so this is HTTP post. Again, I'm not posting anything, but this HTTP post. Okay, and this is the, again I'm just creating two orders. In real life scenario it should come from the UI, but since we don't have a UI, I'm just creating it over here. So I just created order should have a customer will have a address, and then order will have items. So right now I'm inserting two items, right? So this is my first object. Now let me use MyContext dot order, not orders, and then add an order, right? The same way I'll have one more item. I'm just using two items so that we can search things. Okay, and here order, and add orders, and again change context to MyContext and save changes. If you have ever worked, I assume and I believe you have worked with entity framework. So this is the way you kind of push your changes into database. So this is our API which is allow us to kind of save the changes. Now let's run this very quickly and see whether it's inserting it or not. Yeah, so it's running, and let's see whether let's try it out actually. Okay, so we have, let me put a breakpoint here. Let's continue. Perfect. continue one more time. Yeah, we got a 200 response. It seems it worked. Let's go to Cosmos DB and check whether the data are inserted or not. Bingo. So we got our data. So the first record was order was order 1, and it had a customer address, the same 2 items. Order 2 also follows the same. The ID is different, right? So I hope you enjoyed this, how quick it was to kind of save a record. Now let's go back and try to fetch some records. So let's write some API which return all the records. So again, I'll just say MyContext dot orders dot toList. That's it. It should bring me all the records in presence in the Cosmos database. Let me reload this and see what comes out. Perfect. So the Swagger came up. Let me try it out. Click on execute. Perfect. It is bringing me all the records. Now let's check out the scenario where we want to filter something out. So let me stop it, write one more API. To save some time, I'll just quickly copy and paste, and I'll say search by name. Okay, and I'll pass the name. Okay, get order, and it's a name, and it should, alright, I'll write it in front of you. I'll want all the orders, so I'll say MyContext dot order dot where element dot customer dot first name, let's say name, and let me actually make it to lower so that users will not be users should not get confused. And let's find out let's bring all the customers where name kind of contains this name, and let me make this as well as a lower. Alright, and let me return OK response and with orders. Make sense? It says we cannot convert. Okay, so let me actually change this to I action result. Let's see if it worked. Yeah, it worked. Let me run this and see how it behaves. Alright, so we got our Swagger. Let me try it out. Let me provide first name as Naveen and see what happens. It bring me one record. Yeah, so we have our order exist for customer Naveen, so it prove it works, right? And if I just show you the query it is generating, I hope you guys can see it. Let me zoom it a bit. Yeah, so for my last query, for my last operation, it generated this query, select C root. So behind the scene it is actually generating the query which you will write. So I think it's quite easy to work with entity framework, and the amount of code you use to write in case of the SDKs and the amount of code you're writing in case of entity framework is like huge difference. At the same time, you can expect a guy who had worked in entity framework can be productive from the day one. That's pretty much I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you like this video, and I hope it was useful. So thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned, stay healthy, stay safe. Thanks, and goodbye for the next time.